given a birth, at birth, on the ship of life, a transatlantic, Pacific, romantic steamer for dreamers and doers of all kinds, especially one-of-a-kinds like you. A floating cabin, all and always your own, with a singular place to rest in, take refuge in, high and dry from storms and squalls. With a window like an eye, keeping an eye on the world around you, till now. And now, on this next leg, waving hand and heart of your voyage through time and space, to new waters and next ports of call, as the whole ship sails on. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in to show 200, my bicentennial. Cue the fireworks, the tall ships and fanfares of delightedness, mine and others, across this series. An extra thanks to all my regular listeners. Love knowing you're out there and feeling you out there. Well, coming to you live today from New England, from the meandering coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet, illuminator, and guiding spirit in the poetosphere, Colin Goedecke, a voice here and elsewhere for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. Last week's broadcast, 199, was small town and village life that form beautiful layers and threads in the quilts of countries everywhere, part of the vibrant fabric of their larger cultures, identities, values, vitalities, throughout history and up to present day, including many of our own individual histories, our origin stories, qualities that to me are now and still worth drawing on. Because their spirit can help us revive or return to or deepen our sense of and sensibility about true community and neighborliness, from connectedness to respectfulness, especially in these times of so much social fragmenting and isolating, disrupting and disrespecting. Also with an eye here to us finding, creating, preserving, and supporting all those we can, their true virtues. This week, wandering and wanderlust, the joys of being a now and then wanderer, for the sheer joy and serendipity of it, the liberating feeling of it when we're free floating, and that upwelling that can overcome us, the burning desire to venture forth, to explore other parts of the world, places, things, and people, one's new, different, and intriguing. Well, wandering, of course, can and does happen, and wanderlust can be satisfied, not only literally, but also inside ourselves. The incredible geographies, the terra incognitas of our minds, our spirits, hearts, consciousness. I feel this is something many would do well to do, to open to, would find joy and wonder and inspiration in, could discover much of value through, could soften and lighten us too all the more. Hence my choice for this theme for this program. So, around that, I've crafted a show of cultural commentary, poetry, quotes, anecdotes, and inquiry around this theme, and a selection of sharings in from various listeners, followers, and friends that I invited thoughts from. And they sent a goodly many, and of just the best kinds. So, why don't we wander about together, and maybe help you indulge whatever wanderlust you may have going on, tugging at your sleeve. Well, why don't we start with a torch? Okay. This is a poem from Gorizia, on the island of Kea in the Cyclades in the Aegean, Greece, back in August of 2012, summer of then. O pyrsos mu, my torch. My torch, O pyrsos mu, is the pen that illuminates the page, the hand that guides each arriving word, the opened eyes that showed me the world as it was, as it is, and now becomes. The eyes that light the life passages I wander and wonder through, that reveal the beauty and majesty of free, old, and fellow souls. It's the flame of my heart that dispels the darkness, that burns with innocence. Poem from 2019 for Jan Rig, my wonderful Norwegian friend, who might be listening right now. I hope so. Over yonder is going in a direction beyond actual or usual roads, a life lived by way of moving targets, local appearing, disappearing, and now vanished landmarks, and by pointing motions made by others, sometimes mentors, often strangers, some who may be angels in disguise, indicating the general area in which desired locations exist, which may even be in sight. There's a reason it all rhymes with wander. So, gather your clues of context and subtext, gesture and conjecture, and keep going. No matter what, you're in for further adventure over yonder. As we all are, friends. Rebecca Solnit, wonderful writer, from her Field Guide to Getting Lost. If you don't know of that one, that's a wonderful, wonderful book. I love going out of my way beyond what I know and finding my way back a few extra miles by another trail with a compass that argues with the map. Nights alone in motels in remote western towns where I know no one and no one I know knows where I am. Nights with strange paintings and floral spreads and cable television that furnish a reprieve from my own biography, when in Benjamin's terms, I have lost myself, though I know where I am. Moments when I say to myself as feet or car clear a crest or round a bend, I've never seen this place before. Times when some architectural detail on vista that has escaped me these many years says to me that I never did know where I was, even when I was home. Thank you, Rebecca Solnit. Reminds me actually of in this very moment of a wonderful friend of 40-plus years out in Seattle, Richard Kale, incredible artist and spirit, soul, magician of a kind. And he said he would love to go to foreign countries where he didn't know the language. He purposely did not want to know the language. About trying that out. Trumbull Stickney. He has this very short poem. I hear a river through the valley wander. I hear a river through the valley wander whose water runs, the song alone remaining. A rainbow stands, and summer passes under. Wonderful. Like that very much. New to me. New discovery. This is from the Drinklings Coffee House in Wilmore, Kentucky. It's a 2020 blog post I found for us. It starts off, why not all who wander are lost doesn't mean what you think it means. Some of us, myself included, are textbook definitions of, quote, wanderers. I've been one all my life. Staying put for too long feels like drowning. The journey feels like freedom. Tolkien was just such a man. In Lord of the Rings and the whole of Middle-earth, we see Tolkien's heart enthralled with the journey ahead of him and curious to know where wandering might take him. And so we stumble upon that one sentence in his writing that has become something of an iconic axiom for those who consider themselves restless souls. Here is the full quote. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. Tolkien is not baptizing the wandering soul in the mere sake of his wandering. Wandering can be aimless and it can be exciting, but it can also lead one, perhaps more often than not, to places that one never intended to go. The clear message throughout all of the characters' wandering journeys is that they must wander with convictions, with purpose, with a direction toward an end. When one wanders, one should still be keen enough to know when to continue wandering in a particular direction or when one's fate is in jeopardy. That may come through the assistance of maps and guides. It may come through the assistance and reliance on God and dear friends. It may come through seeking wisdom for the true love and desire of it, as opposed to the pure acquisition of knowledge. The downfall of Saruman and countless others in our own world and history. Not all who wander are lost, this is true, but don't assume this means that if you are wandering, you are not lost. Many are. The question is not if you will wander, but how you will wander. Thank you for that post. I like that. So fitting for us. Well, here's John O'Donohue on beginnings from his beautiful book, To Bless the Space Between Us. I've pulled from it for other programs of ours. When we arrive into the world, we enter an ancient sequence. All our beginnings happen within this continuity. Beginnings often frighten us because they seem like lonely voyages into the unknown. Yet in truth, no beginning is empty or isolated. We seem to think that beginning is setting out from a lonely point along some line of direction into the unknown. This is not the case. Shelter and energy come alive when a beginning is embraced. We are never as alone in our beginnings as it might seem at the time. A beginning is ultimately an invitation to open toward the gifts and growth that are stored up for us. To refuse to begin can be an act of great self-neglect. Our very life here depends directly on continuous acts of beginning. When the heart is ready for a fresh beginning, unforeseen things can emerge. And in a sense, this is exactly what a beginning does. It is an opening for surprises. Surrounding the intention and the act of beginning, there are always exciting possibilities. Part of the art of living wisely is to learn to recognize and attend to such profound openings in one's life. Wonderful. Thank you, John O'Donohue. Thank you very much for that. For everything I've read of his and know of his and have shared. Wanderlust has German roots. Some people were curious about this, as was I. For my part, writes Robert Louis Stevenson in Travels with a Donkey, I travel not to go anywhere, but to go. I travel for travel's sake. The great affair is to move. Sounds like a case of wanderlust if we ever heard one. Those with wanderlust don't necessarily need to go anywhere in particular. They just don't care to stay in one spot. The etymology of wanderlust is a very simple one that you can probably figure out yourself. Wanderlust is a lust for wandering. The word comes from German, in which wandern means to hike or roam about, and Lust means pleasure or delight. Beautiful travel words that describe wanderlust. This is from the intrepidguide.com. Describe your travels with these unique and beautiful words from different languages around the world. How we feel when we crave our next adventure. In English, wanderlust means to have a strong desire for impulse to travel, wander, and explore the world. Well, here's some of the words. There's quite a few, so I just chose some that what I felt were the juicier ones for us, or the exceptionally colorful. A Swedish word, I don't know how they would, what their accent would be, resfeber. It refers to the restless race of the traveler's heart before the journey begins, when anxiety and anticipation are tangled together. R-E-S-F-E-B-E-R. If you hear that word, you know what's going on, or you may have a case of it yourself. Solivagant, a Latin word, wandering alone, a solitary adventurer who travels or wanders the globe. Fernweh, F-E-R-N-W-E-H, Fernweh, German means an ache to get away and travel to a distant place, a feeling even stronger than wanderlust. That literally translates to, quote, distance sickness. How about that? Another German word, Sehnsucht. S-E-N-S-C-H-N-S-U-C-H-T, a noun. A wistful longing and yearning in the heart for travels past and future. But that, when you return from traveling and wish you could do it all over again and experience every moment like it was the first. Sehnsucht. A Greek word, eleutheromania, an intense and irresistible desire for freedom. A Middle French word, cocagne, C-O-C-K-A-I-G-N-E, an imaginary land of luxury and idleness. Every destination seems like a wonderland or cocagne before you set foot there and see it for yourself. Another French one, dérive, D-E-R-I-V-E, a spontaneous and unplanned journey where the traveler leaves their life behind, allows themselves to be guided by the landscape and architecture. Sounds a little bit like me. Literally translated as drift, dérive. How about this one? Another German one. Schwellenangst. Fear of crossing a threshold to begin a new chapter. Oh my goodness. Well, I hope you don't have that. I hope not. That has been diagnosed. Another German word, sturmfrei, the freedom of being alone and being able to do what you want. Obviously not just about traveling. A Japanese word, Y-U-G-E-N, yugen. A profound and mysterious sense of the beauty of the universe. That's beautiful. I love that. Profound and mysterious sense of the beauty of the universe. Well, I am often filled with it, with that yugen. How about you? Another French word, trouvaille, T-R-O-U-V-A-I-L-L-E, a chance encounter with something wonderful. Well, that's part of what wandering is all about. An Old English word, selcouth, S-E-L-C-O-U-T-H, when everything you see and experience is unfamiliar and strange, yet you find it marvelous anyway. And the last one, save the last one, which is, it's like something out of Edward Lear, like the Jabberwocky, cottywomple, C-O-D-D-I-W-O-M-P-L-E, an English slang word, to travel purposefully toward an unknown destination. When you have a vague idea of your destination without a care for how long it takes to arrive. But that, what do you say about that? Let's do a bit of coddywampling, shall we? We'll pack some gin and sandwiches. Yes, coddywampling. We're coddywamplers. Like that. All right. Valerie Duff. Poem. Wanderlust. In the Egyptian cafe in London, I drank coffee with men smoking hookah. Draw in, breathe out. The cup was small, the coffee harsh. I had to catch a train from Marble Arch, a still point, Byzantine, one star in a galaxy of trillions. I had to find my friends. Who cares what happened? I moved like a bat, darted, skittered toward the river. An old lady inching toward her complex, screamed when I tried to help her with her walker. It was my life, the rooftops fracture. If I hadn't jostled the mosaic, maybe I could stop the picture. Buildings of stirred beach glass. Cresting sunsets comb the face, refine the land. The world goes sad. Like now, even the ancients felt slips, skips, and experience plotted as mathematical fact. Thank you, Valerie Duff. Well, I'm awfully thirsty tonight in doing this early on in our wandering. I'm glad I have plenty of water with fresh lime juice squeezed in there. Fresh lime. A little more from Rebecca Solnit. This is from her book, Wanderlust, A History of Walking. It starts with a step and then another step and then another that add up like taps on a drum to a rhythm, the rhythm of walking. The most obvious and most obscure thing in the world, this walking that wanders so readily into religion, philosophy, landscape, urban policy, anatomy, allegory, and heartbreak. The Swiss modernist writer Robert Walzer captured this spirit in his short story The Walk, which includes this line: "With the utmost love and attention, the man who walks must study and observe every smallest living thing, be it a child, a dog, a fly, a butterfly, a sparrow, a worm, a flower, a man, a house, a tree, a hedge, a snail, a mouse, a cloud, a hill, a leaf, or no more than a poor discarded scrap of paper on which, perhaps, a dear good child at school has written his first clumsy letters." He's an interesting writer, Robert Walzer, Walser. Might like to check him out. There's another book that you might enjoy, The Joys of Walking, essays by Hilaire Belloc, Charles Dickens, Henry David Thoreau, and others. Goes back to 2012. It came out. And they're reflections by distinguished writers that range far and wide, from the hills and valleys of Thoreau's native New England to the shadowy streets and bridges of Charles Dickens's nighttime London. So, worth a read. Well, you were probably wondering when we were coming to questions, and we are right now. Questions for you, for each of us, about wandering and wanderlust. Are you a wanderer at heart? If so, where does that spring from? And how has it influenced your life or your life choices? When you have wandered in some smaller or larger way, what set you wandering to begin with? And where did it take you, or has it taken you? And surprised or deeply affected or inspired you? Geographically, mentally, emotionally, imaginatively? Do you find or feel it's a good thing at times to have no particular destination, only to explore and discover, like a true flaneur? What does it mean to you to wander? Your own definition of it. Do you believe, as Tolkien famously wrote, all who wander are not lost? I had the good fortune, I would say, to remember that I had that image of that Land Rover for the show image that I captured over in Mystic, Connecticut one day. Isn't that perfect for the show? And what about wandering minstrels back in time? Well, I have actually been one myself here and there, a troubadour of a kind. Gilbert and Sullivan had a song about one in the Mikado. A wandering minstrel I. A wandering minstrel I, a thing of rags and patches, of ballad songs and snatches, and dreamy lullaby. How about that? The wandering minstrel and wanderlust. That yearning, sometimes burning desire, state of being, where does it live in you? Does it live in you? When in your life have you been greatly taken by such desire? Or have a case of it as we speak? And what part of the outer world are you lusting for, if you are, and longing to travel to, or what dimension of your inner world? And what are you waiting for, if you are waiting? Think of the big wanderers, maybe full-fledged nomads that you know or know of, and maybe read about, heard their stories. How have they affected you? Well, what did some listeners, followers, and other enthusiasts share in with me about our theme? Here are a number of them, starting with an uber wanderer, or mega one I know, Bob, out in Sun City, West, Arizona, also a member of the Poetosphere. He said, "I've always been restless out of a curiosity to travel great distances, meet the people there, experience things that are necessarily different from my own experiences at home. I tend to picture a clear glass globe of the world, slowly papered over as I visit one country or another. Quote, wandering has influenced my life, to put it mildly. I remember once on an island in Indonesia, there was a small footpath up a large hill above the ocean. How could I not take that path? And so I did, resulting in a spectacular view over calm, intensely blue waters. I guess it's the, quote, what if I don't do this, that puts me on the path. It's like an open door to something enticing or very beautiful. How can I not walk through that door as long as I sense that it will be safe? It's important for me to have some destination because there's often great freedom in the way you reach that destination. You can fly, take a boat, walk, bicycle, or whatever, each of which modes will help you, to bring a different view of the ultimate destination. To wander is to move beyond yourself, to place yourself outside of your immediate safety zone, and ultimately to realize that you have become comfortable in that new place, with new knowledge and often new friendships that make you say, why didn't I do this before? The older I get, sometimes I do get lost when I wander, but it's always worth the effort to get out there. Tolkien is right on the mark. It's interesting that in German, wandern means to hike. In the mid to late 19th century, it was common for people to hike from inn to inn over a period of days and weeks. Johannes Brahms hiked the Rhine River Valley as well as other areas in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. It fascinates me that this type of travel is coming back these days. I'm reminded of Somerset Maugham's wonderful short story, The Fall of Edward Barnard, in which one of the main characters travels from Chicago to Tahiti on business, but is so taken by the latter that he never returns. In almost every case, acting on my wanderlust has proven sensible and rewarding, but there's nothing like home sweet home after a long and far-ranging journey. Very nice. Thank you so much, Bob, for that. Very good. Okay. Well, to my question about the last time you wandered into a place of wonder, he also said, by the way, just he added this, I've been fortunate to experience many places of wonder, but Antarctica would probably have to take the cake. It's like an enormous yet utterly quiet and peaceful cathedral. One is in awe from one's first glimpse of that remarkable place. Okay, very good. Well, in the mix here, I'm gladly including this song, short song, One Self, by Chloe Goodchild, that she kindly sent me with permission to play for all of you for this show, for all of us, from her album Fierce Wisdom. Worth a listen. This song is about a wanderer coming home. So let me cue it up.
The wanderer, exile, home, coming home, wanderer, the exile, home, coming home, one self is all there is, one self is all there is, one self is all there is, wanderer, the exile, home, coming home.
Oh, how about that? Wasn't that beautiful, her singing that about the wanderer coming home? Yeah, well, eventually maybe the wanderer, except the man who never came back from Tahiti. There's a joy, as Bob also said, about coming back. Well, okay, on we go. Tony from New Jersey emailed me a handful of songs, which I can't play for copyright reasons because they're all, published in the public domain and under some record labels and so on. But I can give you the titles of them. So, hold on, I've got those here. He said, in response to your request for wandering, these songs came immediately to mind. Early Morning Rain, this a song by the Byrds, "Wasn't Born to Follow," from the movie Easy Rider, 1969. Come Wander With Me, The Twilight Zone. I'll mention something about that in a moment. And Dion, The Wanderer, from 1961. That's sort of an iconic song. And here are a few more that I thought of myself. The Temptations, Papa Was a Rolling Stone. The Allman Brothers Band, Ramblin' Man. I was born a Ramblin' Man. Peter, Paul, and Mary, Leaving on a Jet Plane. Glenn Campbell, Gentle on My Mind. Steppenwolf, Born to be Wild. Jackson Browne, Running on Empty. And Bob Seger, Kathmandu. Probably maybe know some of those stories. But the Twilight Zone, interesting. That was the last filmed, not the last broadcast, but the last filmed Twilight Zone in the whole series, the original series with Rod Serling. Singer Floyd Burney, the rockabilly kid, goes deep into the backwoods, hoping to find his next hit record. He no sooner arrives than he hears a beautiful singing voice which draws him deeper into the woods. He eventually meets Mary Rachel, who tells him the song he heard belonged to someone and that she's forbidden to tell anyone about it. When she finally reveals it to him, Floyd learns that his future is preordained. Da-da-dee-da-da-da-da-da. The Twilight Zone. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Tony, for yours and those. Well, here's one from Tom, a Rhode Islander, who is also off in the next days on the famous pilgrimage walk, the Santiago de Compostela in northwestern Spain. He said this: "Years ago, I saw a patch sewn onto a pannier of a touring bike with that quote, 'All who wander are not lost.' I was on a 6,000-mile bike ride. It struck me as so true. Over the years, my wandering and the people I met doing so changed my perspective, gave me confidence, taught me how little I need. So I still wander, seeking further knowledge of people, arts, history, and my own soul. While doing so, I love to sample the vast variety of food and drink available in the out-of-the-way places I pass through. I could talk for hours about some of these experiences, but I'll leave it at that. My life is all the better because of the wandering I have done." That's wonderful. Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for that. I was in a Deeper Well Dweller conversation recently, very recently, in the poetosphere, one of the dimensions of the poetosphere, conversations with very passionately immersed individuals of all kinds in their lives, their selves, their spirits, their work. And this was with a young man, Alex, 32 years old, who is literally, as we speak, motorcycling around the world. And in that exchange, he said this about his early on experience and realizations about nomading off into the wilds of the world. "It took me about 2 months before I realized, why was I riding all day? Where am I going? I have nowhere to go. I'm not on a timeline. I'm not on a budget. So where am I going? Everything in my life up to that point was either for time or money or some other combination of those things. So it was a recalibration. How do I move through the world when it's not a function of those two things?" Something good to contemplate. Thank you, Alex. And continued discoveries, life epiphanies on your journey. Alex, by the way, is going to be one of our Poetosphere correspondents as well, sending in occasional dispatches in word, voice, video, image, as he traverses territory of interest, external and internal. Well, I was also talking the other day with my great friend, the sculptor, painter, storyteller Richard Allen, originally of Maine, but peripatetic wanderer most of his adult life across America and the globe, including Germany, as he mentions. He's now 82, going strong, sound of wind and limb, and wanders on. I dipped into the subject with him a bit. Here's a very small clip from our phone conversation. I want to surprise him because he didn't know I was making a clip, but I did. Hold on.
Really, 1,000, with a little socks halfway up your calf. Have you seen the German Bundesman outfit, Lederhosen?
Oh, the Lederhosen, yeah.
Lederhosen.
So
ago.
what is that song? What's the wandering song from the old German days, way back when? What, like the turn of the 1800s sort of thing?
Oh God, it goes back to the 1400s,
So
1300s.
so how does it go?
My father was mein Vater was ein Wandersmann. Schiller in me, Brutchen, and it's in my blood now, in my blood too. Yeah.
So are you
That's how they do it.
in the Lederhosen?
Oh yeah, without, but in October, the Oktoberfest in Munich, all over Germany, they all sing it. You can see thousands of people singing together. They got a stein of beer in their hand. They're rocking.
Is this what you, even though you may not be wearing a lederhosen, is this what happens with you when you're on the road? You're wandering and all about the world, the country. What is that? You? Is that your story? Do you sing that song as you go wandering?
Well, I did all this in Germany. I lived there 3 years.
I know, but I'm saying as a wanderer yourself, as a nomad.
Oh, certainly, it's part of it. Yes, I know it's good to wander. Jesus wandered. Moses and a lot of very spiritual people wander. They're curious. They have a message. They pick up what they see and incorporate it into their philosophy or their daily life or food or diet or whatever. That's good. Yeah, I've always been the wanderer.
Well, I love his style of wandering. Thank you, Richard. Here's another thought for us from the Buddhist warrior monk Hayashi. Also a deeper well-dweller conversation in the poetosphere. This is about the ancient practice of, quote, happy wandering. Let me play that for you.
As a martial artist of a traditional Okinawan karate lineage, I've had to learn hundreds of very precise movements and movement sets. Some of these configurations date back hundreds, even thousands of years. Every step, every breath, even the nature of my breath and the sound of my exhale must be regulated. And my mind must also be poised like a hawk, attending to these body movements. Slight margins of error can cancel the proper activation of the move's potential. In the oddest of ways, this highly rigid adherence to detail can lead to an exhilarating breakthrough, an intersection of the deliberate with the spontaneous. How strange that at the end of such rigorous control lies the expansive freedom of spontaneity, the relinquishing of the need to control, to always have an objective. This doesn't surprise me. In our Western culture, we are more connected to our tensions than our relaxations. The ancient sages recognized this condition and realized that one could be guided through tension in such a manner that they would eventually come to appreciate the nature of relaxation. A brilliant strategy that we could use more of today. The ancient Chinese had a term for the end point of this experience. They called it Wu Wei, effortless action, or non-doing. It's the experience of yourself as a being rather than a doing. I like to think of Wu Wei as a state of happy wandering, a way of living in the natural flow of life, being open to whatever experiences may come. We can be so straddled with plans and expectations, like the concentrated focus necessary to get a martial move just right, that we rarely allow ourselves to wander freely without attachment to outcomes. So, every now and then, embrace some spontaneity. Focus on the moment instead of the destination. Treat yourself to some happy wanderings from time to time. Just let go of all agenda, even for as little as 15 minutes a day, and notice how the present moment rushes in like a breath of rejuvenating fresh air. You might be surprised at the feeling of joy as you momentarily let go of all your immediate obligations and needs. Happy wanderings to all of you.
Thank you. Hayashi. Arigato. Domo arigato. And one last one chosen contribution from the mix is from a local listener here in Rhode Island, B, who years back went off on a several-year walkabout, letting the spirit take her where it wanted. She said for her, wandering is a constant state of being. And this, to your wandering theme and the hearty use of the word lust. For me, wandering is a law of nature. We in the world are constantly foraging and pining for a unique sustenance. We use sustenance for all the infinite exchanges going on, noticed and unnoticed, but still constant. For me, the state of being in wander fuels wonder. Just look at what our bodies do minute to minute as they use air, water, and food to sustain themselves. All those elements wandering through us, finding their unique pathways, feeding our brains to think thoughts, providing for our nervous system, to power our senses and movement, providing a means by which we can live, laugh, love, cry, struggle. Seeing the wonder in a constant state of wandering is a glorious compliment to the way nature postures with an incredible show called the seasons. Wandering challenges us to leave our intellect and relax into being instead of doing, to explore the strange and unknown, to grasp the subtleties of the breathing universe within and without our sense of self. Nature beckons to our wanderlust always. Thank you very much for that, faithful listener, and I wholeheartedly agree, whole-bodily, whole-spiritedly agree with that. And I thank everyone here again for all these welcome sharings and musings and commentating. So on we go with the rest of the program. Or maybe just actually, maybe I do have one last question or so. If you are feeding or have fed your wanderlust, how did it turn out, or how is it turning out? Are you finding satisfaction, or did you, or is it inducing even more wanderlust? And when was the last time you wandered into a place of wonder? Yeah, I think that's good to ask you. Ask us. Some other quotes that I summoned up. We heard Tolkien. Jack Kerouac, quite the rover, on the road. This is from On the Road. Because he had no place he could stay in without getting tired of it, and because there was nowhere to go but everywhere. Keep rolling under the stars. Vladimir Nabokov, nostalgia in reverse, the longing for yet another strange land grew especially strong in spring. By the way, you might be wondering why my choice of a show on wandering. Why else my choice and wanderlust for this bicentennial of 200 broadcasts today? Well, seeing how I began these programs and have kept going with them out of a here confessed desire to freely roam and rove through poetic places and portals of all kinds. This theme struck me as very fitting. Starting out each week as I do, never knowing or needing to know exactly where my exploration, gathering, curating, and presenting will take me and take us. What revelations and inspirations or what experiences for me, for listeners, what connections I'll make with people leaning in, some of them regularly, and there all sorts of good connections have happened. But feeling it'd be interesting, worthwhile, and besides, I love the unpredictable, the serendipitous, the surprising, as you may have surmised. Well, it has been all of this for me, so greatly enlivening, enriching, and enjoyable. Likewise, the continuous wanderlust to travel to some next such territories, new mind, heart, and spiritscapes calling me, singing me to them, sometimes serenadingly, sometimes sirenly. Not unlike the way the world, nature, life, the universe calls to me as a poet, as a seeker, an illuminator every day. So I raise a toast to the gifts of free-form adventuring, and mine and any and all of yours, friends, any and all of yours. Ben Casnocha, his blog, December 2006, the joys of wandering through life where opportunity tugs without a map. I've just lived year by year, slowly but surely ratcheting up my activities. I never said I wanted to be a CEO one day. I just started building a company. I never said I wanted to publish a book by the time I'm 18. I simply started writing a book, and sure enough, one day it got signed by a publisher. The nice thing about not having too long-term a plan or living your life in pursuit of a, quote, dream is that it provides enormous flexibility for taking advantage of whatever life throws at you. Although I do have some kind of larger vision, mostly around impacting the world. In general, I take life day by day, week by week, month by month. As much as I believe in, quote, goal setting, aiming high, and being open about your ambitions for sucking the marrow out of life, for me, the path of, quote, wandering where opportunity tugs without a map works splendidly too. I was thinking as I put things together of people that I know where some kind of wandering or wanderlust factors in some way, explicitly or subtly. Here's a few. This is a poem for Captain Dan Kowalski on his 60th birthday, man of Alaska and the Pacific Northwest, who I went adventuring in the wilderness with many years ago. When you were launched. It's a poem from January 2011. When you were launched. One winter day when the constellations whirled in white silence over the head of your mother and father and everyone on earth, including those like you, newly arriving, you were set afloat, gently but surely, onto a sea of infinite depth and possibility, with everything you needed for a lifelong voyage, a broad-beamed heart, a mercurial mind, and innocently open eyes, in a vessel that has wandered and weathered 5 decades well, from rocking and rolling through the 50s to swinging through the 60s to exploring waters new and far, bracing and embracing, up to present time, watershed time, with a spirit that has grown more buoyant and seaworthy from its seasons of seeing and feeling, a spirit that will light and guide and grace your passage through all the remarkable arcs, channels, and ports of call yet to come. Going to do a little more editing on the fly, because I want to keep us in relative time. We might go over a little more than usual, but not too much. From Long Beach, New York, this is about an Olympic wanderer that I know. This is for Blady. Wing to wing. That's how my angels fly with yours, as you leave the east for the Wild West, for its stories, suns and sunsets, ridges and rememberings of seasons, times of wanderings, as you range cowboy-booted, yellow-rosed from Loveland, loved land, and old friend to Austin and family refound, inviting in, taking in a further adventure, watched over every two-step of your sage-brushed way, faithfully, unfailingly, from above and beyond where the naked eye can see, but your spirit and body can feel, can know. From the owl-dark countryside of Morristown, New Jersey, June 2017, a poem for Tim Gervin. Tell us about Gervinia. It's a mystical land to wander through, ever curiously, ever wondrously. A wild kingdom of ravens, oceans, ink-welled inspirations. A state of being where humanity, serendipity, and all possibility meet. And you can find his wanderings, visual, written, and other, at tim.gervin, GIRVIN.com, especially his journals. I was going to read you some of that, but to keep in time, I'm going to save that for another time. I will share one about myself that I wrote back in July of 2016. A hurdy-gurdy. You know maybe about the hurdy-gurdy. It was an instrument that existed back in time. A hurdy-gurdy is an instrumental man whose music plays when the rosined wheel of his heart rubs against the limber strings of his discoverings. A man of many keys, melodies, constant pitch, often buzzing bridge, whose songs speak of sweet longings, long ago worlds, hidden wonders, wandering minstrel dreams, dancing memories. That's how I often do feel. It's an interesting poem I'll point you to at poetryfoundation.org by Walter MacDonald, McDonald. Some boys are born to wander. Save that one. And also William Stafford's poem, A Message from the Wanderer. You could find that there too, from his collection from The Way It Is. Fabulous collection. Yeah. I want to get to some other things first for us. From lovelightandlearning.com, The Joy of Wandering, Rediscovering the Magic of Flaneuring. More water. I should have had a canteen since I'm wandering with you. Maybe I should have. That would have been the fitting thing to have, a canteen. Or a goat skin. Flaneuring is a practice that encourages free wandering, strolling, and exploration of the urban environment without any specific purpose or destination in mind. It's about taking the time to truly experience and appreciate the beauty of your surroundings without the constraints of a schedule or itinerary. The practice of flaneuring can be a transformative experience as it allows you to slow down, observe your surroundings, and cultivate a sense of wonder and curiosity about the world around you. The flaneur is no longer just a figure of the past, but a symbol of the enduring human desire to connect with our surroundings and explore the world. I am such a one. I think it's a wonderful thing. John Masefield, an old poem, A Wanderer's Song. A wind's in the heart of me, a fire's in my heels. I am tired of brick and stone and rumbling wagon wheels. I hunger for the sea's edge, the limit of the land, where the wild old Atlantic is shouting on the sand. Oh, I'll be going, leaving the noises of the street, to where a lifting foresail foot is yanking at the sheet, to a windy, tossing anchorage where yawls and ketches ride. Oh, I'll be going, until I meet the tide. And first I'll hear the sea wind, the mewing of the gulls, the clucking, sucking of the sea about the rusty hulls. The songs at the capstan, at the hooker warping out, and then the heart of me'll know I'm there or thereabout. Oh, I am sick of brick and stone, the heart of me is sick, for windy green, unquiet sea, the realm of Moby Dick. And I'll be going from the roaring of the wheels, for a wind's in the heart of me, a fire's in my heels. Thank you, John Masefield. That I had read that before, not for a very long time. Well, that made me think of Sterling Hayden, the actor from back in time. He came to mind because I remember an old classic book of his, or a classic I became to be kind of a classic, at least for sailors. But a fellow who I shared, Richard, the Wanderer, knew him back in the day, in the 60s, and went on this boat back then, and he recommended that book to me. I read it, loved it, and this is from Kirkus Reviews on the book, 1963. The movie actor with the face of a wooden Viking and the acting ability generally associated with that substance has dropped the wheel of his famous schooner long enough to produce an autobiography. Hayden is honest about everything. It is the honesty of the man that saves the book. Technically, the book, his autobiography, has so much wrong with it in its parts that it offers a reviewer's field day, interrupted flashbacks and so on. But taken as a whole, it's the interesting story of an interesting man. His description of growing up in the 30s and a boyhood under the wing of a con man stepfather brings a time and a person to wretched life. His indictment of Hollywood comes as no surprise, but is revealing of the Hollywood attitude toward their art. 2 years ago, his flight with his custody-torn children made national headlines, won him the acclaim that his acting never did. That incident exposed him as the book does, a determined individualist and a romantic, the 19th century hero chained in 20th century red tape. With the total unselective recall of a man who has had psychiatrists, Hayden has produced a surprising book that will be read. Yeah, I loved his bravery in doing what he did. Okay. David White, he wrote a poem about the Camino de Santiago, and I felt apropos to include here Camino. The way forward, the way between things, the way already walked before you, the path disappearing and reappearing even as the ground gave way beneath you, the grief apparent only in the moment of forgetting, then the river, the mountain, the lifting song of the skylark inviting you over the rain-filled pass when your legs had given up, and after, it would be dusk in the half-lit villages in evening light, other people's homes glimpsed through lighted windows, and inside, other people's lives. Your own home you had left crowding your memory as you looked to see a child playing or a mother moving from one side of a room to another, your eyes wet with the keen, cold wind of Navarre. But your loss brought you here to walk under one name and one name only, and to find the guise under which all loss can live. Remember, you were given that name every day along the way. Remember, you were greeted as such, and you needed no other name. Other people seemed to know you even before you gave up being a shadow on the road and came into the light, even before you sat down with them, broke bread and drank wine, wiped the wind tears from your eyes. Pilgrim, they called you again. Pilgrim. Thank you, David White. Sharon Olds. Wander as wander. At dusk on those evenings she does not go out. My mother potters around her house. Her daily helpers are gone. There is no one there, no one to tell what to do. She wanders. Sometimes she talks to herself, fondly scolding. Sometimes she suddenly throws out her arms and screams, high notes lying here and there on the carpets like bodies touched by a downed wire. She journeys, she quests, she Marco Polos through the gilded, gleamy loot rooms. Who is she? I feel now that I do not know her, and for all my staring I have not seen her. Like the song she sang when we were small, I wonder as I wander out under the sky how Jesus the Savior was born for to die, for poor lonely people like you and like I. On the slow evenings alone, when she delays and delays her supper, walking the familiar halls past the mirrors and night windows, I wonder if my mother is tasting a life beyond this life. Not heaven. Her late beloved is absent, her father absent, and her staff is absent. Maybe this is earth alone, as she had not experienced it, as if she is one of the poor lonely people, as if she is born to die. I hold fast to the thought of her, wandering in her house, a Luna moth in a chambered cage. 50 years ago, I'd squat in her garden with her red queens and try to sense the flyways of the fairies as they kept the pollen flowing on its local paths, and our breaths on their course of puffs. They kept our eyes wide with seeing what we could see and not seeing what we could not see. Thank you. Wander as Wander. Sharon Olds from her collection Strike Sparks. Okay, coming into our last sharings and musings for this week, for this bicentennial broadcast. William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Thank you, Wordsworth. I hadn't read that since I think I was before even college time. Alfred Hitch, Wander Song. I pass with time from place to place like time, return no more, always a new, immortal face to greet me at the door. Friends alter not, nor love grows cold. No change in life is wrung. For me the old were always old, the young are always young. I pass with time from place to place, like time, return no more. Always a new, immortal face to greet me at the door. Thank you, Alfred Hitch. One more from O'Donoghue. There can be no growth if we do not remain open and vulnerable to what is new and different. I have never seen anyone take a risk for growth that was not rewarded 1,000 times over. Yes, thank you. Rumi said straying maps the path. What do you think about that? The artist Rockwell Kent on our existential wanderlust. This is from his book Wilderness, a journal of quiet adventure in Alaska. It goes way back to I believe the 20s. Man is by nature a migratory animal, the elderly Frederick Douglass reflected in an 1887 speech about his global travels. Quote, "It does not appear that he was intended to dwell forever in any one locality. He is a born traveler." Generation after him, Maya Angelou observed that, quote, "You are only free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place, no place at all." This is, by the way, is from the Marginalian. Partway in time between Douglass and Angelou, the painter, printmaker, and philosopher Rockwell Kent, 1882 to 1971, captured this vital interplay between freedom and belonging, between nature and human nature in the preface to Wilderness, the exquisite record of the 7 months he spent on a remote Alaskan island with his young son in the gloaming hour of the Spanish flu pandemic and the First World War, at the dawn of his artistic life. He said, "Wander where you will over all the world, from every valley seeing forever new hills, calling you to climb them, from every mountain top farther peaks enticing you. Always the distant land looks fairest, till you are made at last a restless wanderer, never reaching home, never, until you stand one day on the last peak on the border of the interminable sea, stopped by the finality of that. We are part and parcel of the big plan of things. We are simply instruments recording in different measure our particular portion of the infinite, and what we absorb of it makes for character and what we give forth." Yes, thank you, Rockwell Kent. Next to last, from her collection, Questions from Outer Space, Listening in Deep Space by Diane Thiel, Thiel. We've always been out looking for answers, telling stories about ourselves, searching for connection, choosing to send out Stravinsky and whale song, which in translation might very well be our undoing instead of a welcome. We launch satellites, probes, telescopes, unfolding like origami, navigating geomagnetic storms, major disruptions, rovers with spirit and perseverance, mapping the unknown. We listen through large arrays, adjusted eagerly to hear the news that we are not alone. Considering the history at home, in houses, across continents, oceans, even in quests armed with good intentions, what one seeker has done to another, what will we do when we find each other? Thank you, Diane Thiel, for that. And last for now, till we're together again over these airwaves, this is from Stonington, Connecticut, May 2022, On a Slow Boat. To China, or anywhere you go, float or fly, or dream, by moonlight or sunlight, you always go by heartlight, with great appetite, with great spice, with an endless sense of wonder and wanderlust. Thank you again, friends, for leaning in here, for thinking and feeling in, for wandering together and feeding or taming your wanderlust. And for those of you faithfully and enthusiastically listening across the whole arc, the rainbow of these weekly shows, 200 today and continuing, across a full spectrum of themes and with the same exuberance, I hope you'll join me. I'd welcome hearing your experience of this show on Wandering and Wanderlust, or how others before this have resonated. I also invite you to freely share it out, or the whole playlist. And if this broadcast was meaningful to you, I'd welcome any contribution you might like to make to me in return among all these other weekly offerings that I enthusiastically shape and provide to the listening world. and your world to infuse minds, hearts, spirits, imaginations in the most enlivening ways I can. You can donate by Venmo to Fivefold, Fivefold at pipeline.com, or by PayPal to the same email. Or you can simply mail a check to me to P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island, 02891, or contribute through the Donate tab at thepoetorialist.com. Is there any theme you'd like to see a future show on? If so, let me know. Colin at thepoetosphere.com. And, of course, you can hear all the broadcasts online on YouTube, currently on the Floating Poetry playlist there, ultimately on other leading platforms. These broadcasts do come to you through the Poetosphere, the oasis of possibility I'm guiding, which you can explore as a visitor or join as a subscriber. And if you haven't already, take some time to get your senses wet there, to wander and find wonder. There's much free and fulfilling content and a sense of our community of possibilitarians. And to make joining more attractive, I've made month and year-long subscriptions available now between now and April 5th of this year of 2024. Just $114 for a year instead of $190, and $14 instead of $19 for monthly subscribers. Each code is all caps and all one word. You'll see it on the site, thepoetosphere.com. I await you there. Come visit. I've also recently released a debut album on Spotify and every streaming platform. It's called Oases of Regenesis, something to help open you to places of greater aliveness. Well, I hope you lean in here soon again. Until then, dear listeners, let yourself wander often, out in near or far landscapes, and in the landscapes of your mind, spirit, heart. And if and when you're filled with wanderlust, enjoy the yearning feeling for itself, no matter what. And if you can indulge it, then pack your actual bags and set off on some larger, smaller voyage of exploration, encounters, and discovery. Goodbye for now, fellow wanderers and would-be wanderers, and good spirits.